Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Time for another show. And, I don't know. I guess I'm out of sorts because the president is crazier than usual. I mean, I guess he's always been like this. And we're just only realizing it now because some craziness was captured on video. But I took a moment to respond to and relay something that I saw a friend on another widely followed friend on Blue Sky saying about it, and then I realized, oh hey, I don't have the right screen open now to hit the start the show music on time, so I'm like 3 seconds late. We'll have to fix that one in post. It was Brett Banditelli just harping on the same thing we all are. They're saying that his favorite Trumpism, as people are now pulling out the greatest hits, favorite Trumpism is that he doesn't exercise because he thinks humans are like batteries and we have a finite amount of energy. That is a good one. Yes. But Greg has already alerted me, and I mean, there's no way we could have missed this. We'll be playing some clips. ABC News, I guess, can go out and collect royalties from everybody. I think this has to be fair use when you reveal that the president is completely insane and untethered from reality. But it's been revealed so many times, too. I don't know that they can have an exclusive claim to it. But certainly this footage. It's been a day, to be sure. And there's lots of other things to catch up on, of course. And there are so very many of them that, maybe the thing to do is I should be looking for, where's my, I need my bookmarks. And they're not easy to find on the new screen for some reason. But we have to get ready for Greg and bring him on and decide, what sort of fanfare to use. I don't have anything backwards for today, but where's my? I knew I had a. I thought I had made this page of random fanfares easier to find, and apparently that is not the case. So, all right, we'll go with the one that is most nearly at hand, and one of his absolute favorites, of course, the prize winner, the big sweepstakes winner, or the Oscar winner. I like it that way. EGOT, maybe? Is that in your future, Greg? What do you think?
I really like the Imperial Margarine one.
There is that one, and let's see, where it's on page 2. Anyway, it's just short and simple. I understand.
Yeah, I think you should move that over to page 1.
We can certainly do that. And by the way,
talk to your sound engineer about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now that's easy to do. But in case there are any who are unfamiliar with the Imperial Margarine ads, I mean, they haven't been on the air for a while. We have it. We'll play it through one day. The entirety of the ad that's got forwarded to us via Facebook, but that's an old-fashioned ad, all right. Up to it, including the family dynamics in this particular ad, in which dad is asking dad's asking mom to pass the butter. He thinks it's the butter. It's margarine. He doesn't know that yet.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is pass the butter, and it takes her like a second. She's eating, right? And he gets impatient. Dear, I said, it's like, this would not make it past the editors now.
Yeah.
That doesn't get too crazy about it, but it's kind of like, why are you impatient? And also,
I ordered something in the household that I rule.
Right, exactly. Anyway, it was interesting in that respect. Not to mention you could probably take the tie off for dinner, Dad.
Well, they have a formal breakfast. Yes. You should also go find the.
Was it dinner?
It's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
Oh yeah. Right, I remember those. Right, then they were when they were trying to fool Mother Nature and everybody else by telling you this margarine is butter. What was was that just a holdover from World War II, like when butter was in short supply, and then in the 60s, like you could get butter now. There's cows.
It's health. Well, but it's
was it a health thing? Okay, all right. I guess that was it. I don't know. There was that
anyway
that health kick along with Light and Lively Never really
So
caught on.
the news today is going to be
What?
that the economy sucks and everybody hates Trump because of it. But
Right.
let's start with this clip because he's nuts. And
Oh, all
so
right.
You mentioned it, and let's
I
play it.
did. It's not my
not all
fault
that
that
long.
it's there. It's just all right. Let's see. Where did we open it? Where are we? Oh, this
Terry
is being.
Moran is interviewing
Yes,
him in
thank
the
you.
first 100 days and dares to fact check the king. So
Yeah,
this is what
and there are a number of these clips. This one is about a minute and a half, so hang in there. But if you haven't heard it, yeah, prepare to lose your
need
mind. Okay.
We have to get him out, and we're doing it.
Talking about
And
immigration.
You'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he...
And we're talking here about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the most celebrated such case.
the one where he's minus 21 with the public on
Yes.
his handling.
So as he's saying now, they're talking about his tattoos. You know the story. Okay.
And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
Well,
over that.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles
didn't say-
tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute.
I-
Hey, Terry.
He did not
Don't
have the
do that.
letter MS13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That
just...
was Photoshop, Terry. You
He
can't
had-
do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to
Terry,
move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the
Yes.
picture. We'll
and you think it
agree
was
to disagree.
Photoshop? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He
Fair
had
enough.
MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine,
No,
sir.
Terry,
I want to get to
Terry,
Ukraine.
No.
I love
He
that he's
had
insisting.
MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted.
By the way, I have to say, I love that it's Trump insisting that they stay on this point.
Right.
Everybody
you
is.
could stop the clip at this point, but
okay.
you're absolutely right because there's
There's
many
more.
things that, and as you pointed out,
Yeah.
Trump's the one that wants to stay on this. His only response to being fact checked and corrected is to start bullying Terry Moran and telling him he's a nobody.
Yeah, right.
It's just Trump in every way, shape, or form.
It really does. It expresses all of it. There's a little bit more to it in which he, then goes on to insist. I believe at some point he says, "This is why people don't trust the news." Now, by way of background, look, I don't know what to think really in the end about Terry Moran. I never liked Terry Moran very much, but and there's some people saying, "Well, kudos to him for exposing the brain rot." Yeah.
No, he
to
didn't
some
do a
extent,
good job
but
at the interview because he kept trying to change the subject. And as
ultimately-
you pointed out, it's Trump who wanted it.
Yeah.
And Moran certainly could have said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, it's photoshopped."
Yeah, and he
But
did.
he refused to
he
confront
didn't-
him in that sense.
He didn't do a good job explaining it. I don't know whether he's capable of doing it, but to me, that was where I want to. Let me step in. Hey, Terry, hold on a second. You want to straighten this out? He's not going to let you move on. First of all, second of all, stop letting him move on. That's the lifeline. So don't throw him the lifeline. But look, on his knuckles, there's no M on his knuckles. Do we agree on this? No, there is. Do you want me to show you the picture? Yes. Bring it out. Show me the picture. I want to show you why there's an M on this picture. And Trump is like, Photoshop. He thinks Moran is saying that they Photoshopped any and all tattoos on his fingers, that they're not really there. I can't, for all the exposure of the dementia here that Moran does or stumbles into, they don't clarify which particular idiocy is it that Trump is suffering from. The one where people told him that those tattoos meant M and S and 1 and 3 and he gets it garbled, or the one where he thinks the illustrative photo really displays not only an M, but then the word marijuana written underneath the marijuana leaf and the word smiley face written under the smiley face, really in teeny little letters and perfect fonts. They tattooed that on his finger. You understand the difference between these two things, yes? If no, that I want to see on television. But yeah, what can you do? No, I want to talk about foreign policy.
You don't want to get bogged down in the details.
I do.
What Moran should have said simply is, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, but no, these are photoshopped." Well, no, you mean I'm sorry, Mr. President, these are photoshopped, and just say it matter of factly because it's a fact.
Yeah,
and just let him stew on that.
I do like that.
Are
he
you
goes
saying it's
on to say,
yeah, they're obviously photoshopped.
I never heard of you.
Yeah, and let him change his subject and start insulting. That's fine.
I guess. Yeah.
But just deal with Photoshop. Don't try to explain why it's Photoshop. Don't try to explain how it's Photoshop.
Maybe I'd fail
just
at
say
it.
It's Photoshop. Let the audience hear it and watch Trump react to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's certainly worth doing. I feel like I wanted to try and explain it, and also, of course, I'd lose the interview. They'd throw me right out.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would also be like, you are the guy. True.
I'm not explaining it. You're explaining it.
Sure. But it doesn't say those letters on. And another thing, stealth planes are not literally invisible. That is another problem you still have. you have to straighten that out.
You didn't win the 2020 election.
Right.
But I think the best way to approach Trump is simply to matter-of-factly ignore him by saying to his face, well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but the point that you just said is wrong is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And you don't have to establish this after. Just say, no, it's Photoshop.
Right. And then he goes on.
It's Photoshop, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's Photoshop.
This is why people don't trust you.
Well, no, Mr. President, it's Photoshop.
I understand.
Just say it like 15 times.
That they do move on. And then I saw somebody combing through the transcript. They move on. They talk about some other subjects. Trump comes back to it. He won't let it go at all. He comes back like 10 minutes later to the tattoos thing and again accuses him. How could you be so stupid, Terry, that you don't understand that it said this on his knuckles and you're lying? Wow. And that wasn't even the only clip.
No, it's Photoshop, Mr. President.
I guess.
And let's talk about the economy and something else you don't want to talk about.
Maybe. To me, I don't know. I want him I want him tied to the railroad tracks and people holding the photo and say, do you see this? There's no M here.
It's a media interview. It's not a court of law.
No, but I wish it was a railroad.
He belongs in a court of law.
No, the railroad tracks.
That's where he belongs tied to the railroad tracks.
Yes, court of law. Bam, pass that.
Snidely whiplash.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, anyway, he's crazy, and everyone is enjoying their favorite greatest hits of craziness, whether it's ramming the ramparts, taking over the airports.
It's 100 days.
Yes.
And you have to start by swallowing.
No, I want to talk about the tattoos, Greg.
You're already going to be annoyed because you have to swallow the fact that it's 100 days, and therefore,
all right,
media outlets are going to attempt to respectfully interview him and show him deference.
Because 100.
And that's where I originally started spitting on the ground and saying, I get that you have to interview him, but don't show him any effing deference. He doesn't deserve it.
That's certainly true. And there's no magic. Like, okay, 100 days, he's competent. No, he's the fact that it's his 100th day doesn't mean anything.
100-day interview with Trump, that you're going to hear all that. And he's the president. Let's just show. And that's where, since everybody's going to tune in to watch that, you slip in like, listen, Mr. President, as long as we're talking about the Pope, that photoshopped picture of his knuckles, is still in the news. How do you feel about that? Just throw it in his face that it's Photoshop.
It's
over and over and over until he loses it.
It's cool that you can always make him melt down now by just, Well, I want to talk about.
We saw that the other day with the polls. So, forget about the tattoos. Let's just talk about how badly you're doing in the polls.
Oh,
Part of the reason, of course, Mr. President, you're doing badly in the polls is because you keep talking about these Photoshop tattoos.
That's right. We can call him Knuckles from now on.
Yeah.
Knuckles Trump.
Knuckles Trump.
Doesn't really work.
So, it was an interesting interview because of how Trump reacted. Not anything that he claimed to say. And that's why I'm not interested in the rest of the interview. Just that little piece about him reacting to Terry Moran by starting to insult him. The ad hominem.
That was pretty fun.
With facts.
So I also believe that about Terry Moran. But hey, that's just because I don't like him.
So I open up. I went to just look up Dow futures because I wanted to see what the stock market is doing because it's doing so badly these days. Dow futures slide 300 points after data shows economy contracted last quarter. That recession that we were worried about, it's here.
Dope.
First quarter domestic product, gross domestic product declined at 0.3% rate. The Commerce Department said on Wednesday, that would be today, a rapid reversal from a 2.4 increase in the fourth quarter. In other words, Joe Biden left Trump with a good economy and Trump dumped it in the toilet. A separate report from ADP also signaled an economic slowdown, with private payroll growth slowing in April to just 62,000 during the month, well below the Dow Jones consensus estimate from economists of 120,000.
Oh dear.
So selling returned on Wednesday with the weak GDP report raising concerns that the chaos caused by Trump's policy flurry may already have pushed the economy into a recession. We talked about the already part, and let me just give you a sense of how this is being handled in the news.
Oops.
Remember, it's the news that we watch, people who voted against Trump watch, and people who don't vote against Trump and voted for him aren't aware of, but they're aware of the realities of life. They don't need the news to tell them. Breaking news in the Washington Post, U.S. economy shrank in early 2025 as tariffs sapped growth. In other words, it's Trump's fault. UPS set to lay off 20,000 workers as it reduces business with Amazon. And so you get a sense of what's going on here. This is from Financial Times. Demand slump fueled by Trump tariffs hits U.S. ports and air freight. Bookings plunge as importers hold off on shipping goods to America in hope of a Beijing-Washington deal. Logistics groups said container bookings to the U.S. had fallen sharply since the introduction of 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. The Port of Los Angeles, the main route of entry for goods from China, expects scheduled arrivals to be a third lower than a year before. Sharp falls in air freight as well. Bookings for standard 20-foot shipping containers from China to the U.S. were 45% lower than a year earlier. So this is all bad.
Yeah. It is. But it's actually very good.
Yeah. Well, here's another way it shows up. This is from the Nevada Independent.
All right.
March decline in Las Vegas visitation blamed on international travel drop-off. Warning signs crop up as Strip visitation has fallen more than 7% in the first quarter of 2025.
Not that kind of Strip. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I
Las
believe
Vegas
this.
Strip.
Right.
Tourism official points to evolving federal policies. It's called the Strip because basically you walk down one street and all the casinos are right there.
And also all the people in it are stripping.
And you have to, well, it's hot. So it has to be all on one street. You don't want to walk all over Las Vegas in the middle of summer.
Right. Oh, gosh, no. You don't want to walk anywhere. I believe, but they tried to make me do that twice. So, yeah.
I think we had a convention there, so I remember.
Did. Right. And then, as I recall, it's in the hotel next door. Get the bus because it's 1,000 degrees.
And
it's 500 miles to the next hotel.
It's like so bright you can't see.
Yeah. And just amazingly, I guess the size of those hotels dwarfs the distance between them. Like, oh, this is actually like, almost a mile to get to this next hotel.
Well, it's 3 feet to get to the hotel and a mile to get to the front door.
That's the issue. Right. Okay. Well, these things are a block long. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
So that's all important. Las Vegas visitation fell nearly 8% in March, pointed Tuesday to uncertainty brought by Trump administration policies. So this is all getting blamed on Trump, and I think that's appropriate. So it's all good that it's happening, that it's being blamed on Trump. It's bad that it's happening, but good that it's being blamed on Trump because he's responsible.
It's never been so clear before that they always hedge. Well, the president only has limited. Well. But
no, this is clear. This is from the Times, which used to be the Times of London. It's the Times from the UK, not the New York Times, or not the Epoch Times. It's the Times. And this is 100 days of Trump because, at 100 days, everybody does their polls. And it says, you're failing on the economy. Americans tell Trump in Times poll. President's approval rating is dropping as only a tenth say they're better off in the 100 days since he took office. He's failing to make America wealthy again, according to Republicans, Democrats, and independents. This is a YouGov survey. His net approval rating is minus 11.
Yes, minus 11. Is that good?
With Hispanics and the young souring on him most since this election victory. Right. Young voters and Hispanic voters, as we talked about the other day, most likely to not be ideologic and just care about whether or not you're putting money in their pocket. That's all they vote on. Tariffs are judged by 25% as the biggest mistake of his first 100 days, while the same proportion see the immigration crackdown as his best achievement so far. But they really don't. What they see is controlling the border as his best issue. And that's because border crossings are down highly significantly, like 95%, without exaggeration. But nobody wants to come here.
Yeah, well, border crossings from tourists.
But on immigration itself, he's underwater.
Yeah. Interesting.
And the last point,
so much
almost half of people think he will seek an unconstitutional third term, while respondents name other frontrunners for 28 presidential race. The point here, I think, that sometimes gets overlooked, but I think it's really important.
Not this time. It won't be overlooked.
Well, I'm not going to overlook
it.
So I'm going to tell you about it so that you don't either. In the first term,
yes,
Trump was unpopular because of who he was. A crook, a shyster, a liar, a rapist,
right,
a felon. I mean, all the things. He wasn't convicted yet, but everybody knew that's who he was, and that's his personality. So he's unpopular because of who he was. Now, 8 years later, people have accepted the fact that he's a crook and a liar and a gonif and all that, so they don't really, raise an eyebrow at that. It's his policies they don't like. Trump is unpopular because of his policies. That's much more deep-seated. That's much more deep-rooted. That is something he cannot turn around.
Okay.
Because people will look and say, okay, he's a rogue. I get that. Semi-entertained sometimes. It's better than the boring stuff that the Democrats. But but you don't apologize, and you can't talk your way out of his policies suck, and they're making me bankrupt.
No, that's a little more difficult. I guess people now. I don't know what to tell you. Coming to the realization finally at 100 days, the magical 100 days. Join me in
it's
10 days
4 years and 100 days.
Yeah, that's true. My interview with the president comes up in about 10 days. For the base 11 times, we'll be we'll be interviewing him on his 100th day.
Right.
So I get it. Is it
I want to ask
Greek
you about
Orthodox
that
times.
Photoshop the MS-13 to base 11.
Right. It doesn't say 13.
To
it's
the power
only
9
because Well, at any rate. Yeah.
Americans have delivered a verdict on the first 100 days of President Trump's second term in an exclusive YouGov poll for the Times. The survey of 1,296 strong representative sample, end of April, yields a series of revelations. Only 11% of Americans say they're better off since Trump took office. Only a third of Americans think Trump's policies will make them better off a year from now. He's regarded favorably by 39% and unfavorably by 51%. It's the Times, so I forgive them for misspelling favorable.
Yes.
Extra U in it. 37% of Americans give Trump's first 100 days a grade of excellent or good.
How many?
59% rating it fair or poor. Twice as many voters give him a grade of poor than excellent. Actually, there was another poll that came out which graded him from A to F.
Yeah.
And most people gave him an F.
I would hope so. What kind of grouping is fair to poor? Fair is good and poor is bad. That's a bad grouping.
Twice as many voters gave him a grade of poor, 44%, than excellent, 21%.
All right. Excellent.
So often people will say, okay, the dividing line is excellent and good is you like it, and fair to poor, you don't. So if excellent to good is 60 and fair to poor is 40, then 60% like what he's doing and 40% don't. That's where the fair comes in.
I guess so. Yeah, I would never put. To me, fair and poor don't belong in the same grouping. And that's just a reaction to the question. Would you say that he's doing a fair job? Like, no, of course not. Well, but that doesn't mean he's doing a good job. It's just, no, it's horrific. I mean, well, then you're in this other category. But yeah, like to me,
you're right. I mean, they should have only three categories: good,
say,
bad, and meh.
Yeah, and I don't know, or I don't care, or no worse than anybody else.
Who are you again?
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Fair.
No, that's your category. Good, bad,
I never heard of you,
meh,
but I
and
picked
who are you
you
again, and why are you asking me this?
Right.
44% said that.
Yeah,
Among the subgroups
11%
giving
wanted to
Trump
talk
the
about the
lowest
knuckles.
marks are two that shifted towards him and the Republicans in 2024. We've heard this before from G. Elliott Morris. Those aged 18 to 29 and Hispanics, 25% excellent or good against 69% fair or poor, the exact same numbers with Hispanics.
Okay. What?
Our friend Mark Blumenthal, the mystery pollster, who is an analyst for YouGov these days, the results on the economy are clear. Donald Trump was elected in large part to solve the inflation problem, and the opinions range from it hasn't been solved to it's getting worse, Mark Blumenthal said. That's a big reason why his approval numbers are dropping. In other words, his policies suck.
Yeah.
We understand it. We understand that his policies suck. We don't like it. Only 33% think they'll be better off a year from now. Blumenthal said this is a big factor behind the finding that twice as many think Trump's second term has been worse than expected than those who say better.
Okay.
It's all tariffs.
Well, yes. I mean, he's created incredible chaos, and everybody knows it, and they put it right in front of everybody's noses, where you can ignore the news all you want, but if you keep,
they're
eating,
big, they're beautiful,
or paying
and
your rent.
This is not something that you can all of a sudden turn around and blame on somebody else. When we get to the Canadian elections, we're going to talk about that.
No, he is trying.
That'll be after the break.
Okay.
Yeah, he can try, but that's not going to fly at all.
It's insane to try, right? Yeah, I mean,
I took credit for all of this. I'm the one that makes this happen. I'm forcing it through. Oh, it's somebody else's fault. No. Doesn't work that way.
Right. I don't know. It doesn't. That makes zero sense. He's trying it anyway for some reason, but he's crazy. Another clip that I was reminded of that's also now circulating, in which Trump claims that the economy and tourism are both on fire. They're both hot. It's way up. And Moran is like, no, they're down.
No. When we say they're on fire, Mr. President, what we meant is that they're literally on fire.
Yes.
And you can't just sit there and say this is fine.
Right. Also, your pants.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue with Greg Dworkin to find out that the president is a crazy idiot. Okay.
Yeah, he's an idiot who also happens to be crazy. So the Washington Post, Aaron Blake, had 7 poll numbers that sum up Trump's first 100 days. And says, a lot has happened, and we've published all sorts of stuff about what he's done, what's ahead. But in this space, we focus on the politics, and of late, that's involved tracking fast-changing opinion. It's fast-changing because the opinion of him is plunging as fast as the stock market.
Yes. It's hard to keep up with the numbers plummeting.
Number 1. His historic early unpopularity. And again, this cannot be said enough, Mr. President. This isn't photoshopped. You are the most unpopular president after 100 days in the history of polling.
I heard popular president.
The only person more popular than you was you in your first term, and every other president.
Yeah. Oh, well, what can you do? He's breaking records. That's
Trump spent much of his first term in the low 40s. As to Joe Biden, so that's not unfamiliar territory, but his current approval rating is lower than where any other modern president not named Trump was at this point.
Or any point, really, probably.
To wit, a new NPR PBS Marist College poll Tuesday, and this is the one I was referring to before, showed that 45% of Americans gave his presidency an F.
Mm-hmm. And I don't give it an F.
You.
Hey, all right, cool.
That's
that
compared
cool,
with
man.
32% at this point in his first term, 26% for Joe Biden, and 11% for Barack Obama.
Okay. That doesn't leave me a lot of room to play with what the F is for.
Well, we know what the F is for.
We do now.
Well, I photoshopped
it. Is that spelled with a PH or an F? Photoshop?
No, it's spelled with a big, fat F.
All right.
It's a tariff, stupid.
He is
number two. One striking thing about Trump's early unpopularity is this. Most of the major things he's done are more unpopular than he is. And at the very top of that list of even more unpopular policies is his tariffs, the main driver of Trump's problem right now, which is completely and totally self-inflicted.
All right.
A whopping 72% says it's at least somewhat likely that Trump's economic policies will lead to recession. Well, after the first quarter contraction, let's see if that changes. Even more people think so. If there's a silver lining for Trump, it's his base maintains faith that the tariffs will help over the longer term. But that's only about 4 out of 10 Americans who think ultimately it'll be a good thing. And that's going to drop as it starts to hit them.
You could probably get away with not talking about a silver lining.
The border.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a golden lining. The border, sharp decline in illegal border crossing as a 21st century low. And people like that. So they approve of Trump on border security, 55 to 40. But that's not the same thing as immigration. There are kinds of border numbers we haven't seen for a long time, and the White House is arguing that's Trump. And that's probably true.
Yes.
The rule of law is still a wild card in the poll. Just about every poll shows that people say by double digits that the Trump administration should bring back Abrego Garcia and his Photoshop knuckles.
Yeah. And
not deport pro-Palestinian activists, and they strongly disagree with deporting people without due process. And polls have long showed that Americans don't think the administration is particularly keen on following the law. They get all of that. The fact that they voted for him anyway is a completely different topic. All told, the post-ABC Ipsos poll shows the Americans say by a striking 62 to 37% that the Trump administration doesn't respect the rule of law. That's why I always put his support in the, base support MAGA, like 37% in this poll. Anybody who thinks Trump follows the law is MAGA.
Yes.
And it's only a third of the country.
Yeah.
It's never more than that.
Quarter. But yeah, I mean, people have been poisoned for a little while.
Yeah,
now,
so all discussions about persuasion and talking to people have nothing to do with that 37%.
Right.
Number 5, they see Trump as haphazard. Actually, he's a chaos agent. We know that. A New York Times Siena poll showed that 66% say the word chaotic describes Trump's second term.
Okay.
The political failure of the Musk project, pretty evident. Musk is very unpopular.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's the Washington Post, and you have to both sides of everything. 2026 still looks close.
2026. Oh, okay, yeah.
In other words, the Democrats only lead slightly on the generic ballot. Well, sure, there's no election, and people aren't focusing on that right now.
I hate generic guy. He's so generic. Right.
Yeah.
Sure, I understand. The chaotic thing is interesting too. So 60, 2/3 people saying chaotic is the way to describe it. It is interesting just because it reminds me that the press spent time prior to this second inauguration and then into the first 100 days saying, well, what's really happening here or about to happen sometime soon, I'm not sure why it isn't happening yet, but certainly it's around the corner, is that this term will be much more organized and efficient. The first term was chaos because they didn't know what they were doing. The second term will not be chaos because they do know what they're doing. But actually, they did know what they were doing. What they were doing was more chaos, and people did not want to say so.
The press will be doing its job when they do every story with Trump, who lies about everything,
right?
That
way.
Because that's the only way you can deal with any of the stuff that he said. Well, he says Trump, who lies about everything, says things are going well.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that, is so ridiculous about the Washington Post analysis that, well, 2026 is still close.
Okay, right.
They put part of the reason for that is the ongoing and historic unhappiness with the Democratic Party. All right, so let me give you
I see what they're
let me
doing.
give you a hypothetical here.
I will. Let's say you would give me a hypothetical. Then what?
Let's pretend I might give you a hypothetical
Right.
here.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm willing to entertain this.
What if Chuck Schumer responded to Trump's tariffs, his lawlessness, ignoring the courts, and brazen I don't even know what to call it, the grift of the Dogecoin stuff.
Oh, yes, right. Well, sure.
Okay. And took all of this and said, I'm going to write a sternly worded letter.
Right.
A sternly worded letter with strong points about what you're doing wrong. Let's say Chuck Schumer did that.
Let's say it.
Let's say he did.
Hypothetically.
Because he did.
Right.
So how would the Democratic base respond to that?
Well, among typewriter salesmen, it's huge.
Yeah, I suppose.
But the rest of the base, strongly worded letter is actually a joke. Right? I mean, it's a punchline. Strongly worded letter, it literally is now a punchline.
So if polls pick up the fact that people are unhappy with the Democratic Party, does that mean that Republicans therefore will do better than expected in the off-year election, where the off-year party, the out-of-power party, generally does better? No, people are unhappy with the Democratic Party because they're not fighting hard enough, publicly enough, in ways that seem clear that you are trying to oppose him. Like, for example, you should 100% vote no on every single nominee that Trump has there, period.
It sure
no
is
discussion.
Easy. You don't have to think very much.
You're the minority party.
Yeah.
It's okay for you to do that. Republicans do it all the time.
It used to be the case that these things were bipartisan, and for 10, 15 years, it has not been.
Long gone.
Yeah.
That's gone with the typewriter and margarine, you know?
Exactly.
Imperial margarine.
But he's still typing letters.
So, that being the case, the fact that this analysis says that people are unhappy with the Democrat, well, duh. People who will strongly vote Democrat and nothing else are unhappy with the Democratic Party. So you can't look at whether or not their image is okay in this poll as a proxy for how they're going to vote in 2026.
That is true. Democrats
completely
love being
separate
upset.
topics.
Yeah. That's something they should be looking into, right? Are you upset with the Democratic Party? Yes. And so that's going to affect your vote. How? Well, are you familiar with the Democratic Party? I'm upset professionally.
Are you familiar with the Republican Party? No effing way.
Yeah, that can't be true. So, right. That's absolutely true. Am I upset with it? Yeah. Am I going to vote for the one I'm even more upset with? No, I'm not. And how many choices have I got? 2. So what am I going to do?
Right.
Okay. But I'm sure it's close.
Trump has problems beyond polling. Trump has problems beyond the economy, although those are all important things. They're extremely important things.
Yes.
This is a story in the Wall Street Journal.
Well,
Trump has a trust problem in court.
Yes.
President's policies face roadblocks with judges who don't believe they can give his administration benefit of doubt.
They think his briefs are photoshopped, essentially.
Well, and so what I am saying is, look, if the courts can come to the conclusion that they don't give him the benefit of the doubt, the media, the newspapers, the networks also should come to the conclusion that you don't give him the benefit of the doubt. It's not that hard. I don't know why you're having a problem with this. He lies to your face all the time, and he insults you.
I mean, it's funny because they think ignoring the insults is professionalism. And that's maybe true, I guess, when the insults are, I never heard of you. But when the insults are, I'm going to deport or murder you, that's a First Amendment issue. Remember that one? You were into it. It's a big deal. It's the entirety of your existence. Yeah.
Federal judges are questioning the Trump administration's veracity in legal proceedings. Here are the three key
Veracity.
points.
Yes.
Judges are voicing concerns that the administration is lack candor in explaining its actions.
They're not allowed
And the
to.
government's credibility matters because many of the suits it faces allege violations of administrative procedure, which in fact is the
Yes.
Administrative Procedure Act of 1946
Right.
that sets out the steps for making federal policy. With increasing irritation, federal judges are questioning the Trump administration's veracity in legal proceedings. I am simply saying again that if the courts can do this, that is exactly the same
Take your cues.
skeptical approach that media should take whenever you interview Trump and or cover him and or write about him. Trump, comma, who always lies, comma, said the following.
That's right. Take your cues from the court. If there's any institution more strongly married to I have to hear both sides and then decide than the newspapers, it's the courts. They're required to. There are two sides professionally represented, and now they've heard both sides and they're making decisions. You can accept those decisions. Certainly, you can report on them.
So if you say to me, well, we have to be very clear-eyed about this and polite and professional because we take a very lawyerly view on how we express our opinion about the president. And I'm saying to you, well, the courts are doing it, and you can't get more lawyerly than that.
That's true. It's troublesome because we're not sure what comes out the other end of, oh, my God, a major undergirding tenet of the legal system has been demolished. The presumption that government lawyers will come to court and even when it's damaging to their case, tell you the truth and be exhibit candor with the court. And they just don't know what to do with the idea that the Department of Justice will regularly be lying and obfuscating and dragging their feet.
Sure.
It's hard.
It's,
built the whole legal system the other way.
They really have to get the idea that these are all political appointees.
Yes. I mean, they're aware of that, but yet even so, there's 46 administrations worth of prior experience with, even when the top political appointees are the only ones who'll stand up in court and do this and the line attorneys won't do it or have been fired, we still pretty much can count on them saying, they're not going to stand there and say that these knuckles say MS-13. They're not. Well, now they are.
They are.
We don't know how to deal with that.
I say that president's word isn't worth the paper it's broadcast on. That's what I say.
Right. And if there were a way to work that out, hypothetically?
Now, there are people, and I've had these comments on social media, including Daily Kos, who say, yes, but what does it all mean? What difference does it make that Trump is unpopular or that the Democrats are leading the generic ballots? And I give you two words, and no, plastics is not one of them. So the first word is elections, and the second word, which is really an important word, is impeachment.
Okay. All right. Why? I mean,
this is Axios.
Why?
Trump's team wargaming for an impeachment fight.
Okay.
President Trump's advisors are seriously considering the likelihood that he would be impeached again if Democrats take the House next year. Well, duh. He's a crook. He's ignoring the law. Yeah. And those are things worth impeaching somebody over.
Right.
I'm certain Trump's longtime pollster John McLaughlin told Axios, echoing others in Trump's orbit, why it matters. As the only twice impeached president, Trump and his team are keenly aware of how much the process can weigh on the White House and grind a president's agenda to a halt. That means that even if he's not convicted, there's benefit in impeaching him.
Yes, true. And that's been the subject of some debate over the last couple of days, unfortunately, including a growing list of moderate-ish type Democratic elected officials who I guess see it as their job to say, no. We're going to be pursuing some different policy, although how, I don't know.
Well, meaning, in the meantime, Michigan Representative Sri Thanador introduced 7 articles of impeachment against Trump for how he's dealt with immigration, humanitarian aid, and judicial rulings.
It seems we can't stop these fellows.
And Georgia Senator John Ossoff became the first swing state senator to signal support for impeaching Trump.
Sure.
The threat of
right.
impeachment has added urgency to the Trump administration's push to get as much of his agenda through Congress as possible before 2026, especially his
no
plan
agenda.
to extend the tax cuts. The threat of another impeachment could help Trump team motivate his fickle base. Nah, no, because the people who are deserting you over your policies,
Right.
not
yeah.
your personality.
No fickle base.
Yeah.
He's got a maniacal base, and then transient attraction to other people who have lost interest. Okay. The impeachment thing is I mean, what can you say? It has to be out there. But yeah, there are definitely people saying, well, we don't have the votes.
Well, it's it's very real.
Yeah. Oh, people are talking about it. But I think Dave Weigel spent some time over the weekend saying, now, why would you campaign on something that just can't happen? You're not going to have the votes. There won't be 2/3 for removal in the Senate. So why would you, which was interesting because I was like, oh, God help us. No one ever campaigns on stuff that won't work. What are we going to do? America will die. We campaign on stuff that won't work all the time. That's what campaigns are. You promise stuff. It won't work. And then,
so here's the sort of
happens.
thing I read in Axios.
All right.
And I'll tell you my first thought.
Okay.
Fire the guy who says this.
Oh.
Unlike Trump's first term, one senior advisor said some Democrats' push to temper the calls for impeachment
Yeah, fire that
might
guy.
carry the day this time. They've largely learned their lesson.
Oh, boy. What lesson?
But it depends upon who wins the primaries. Democrats have their own problems. Yeah, you're fired.
Sigh. I guess from a procedural point of view, I'll just remind everybody, why would you impeach him if you can't convict? I mean, if anybody remembers either of the two impeachments from the first Trump administration, you might also remember the court battles that we had where the investigative committees were seeking certain information and Trump was resisting and the courts were forced to admit, no, actually, in the context of impeachment, the rules are different. And the pressures are different and the balancing is different. So just don't forget that we have some good court precedent from this more or less the same court saying, yeah, when you're in the middle of an impeachment hearing, actually you can force force their jaws open a little wider. And I don't know why that's forgotten. But also, again, you never know what's going to happen when you give these Republican senators, some of them are crazy, but give them a second shot at, you could be rid of Trump, the man, forever if you take this opportunity. I know you didn't take either of the first two, but you know what they say about charms and 3 times and da-da-da. I forget how that whole thing goes. Yeah, also, and then of course there's, well, gee whiz, if the guy doesn't, believe in the Constitution, what else are you going to do? You might not convict him, but if you sit there and say, we're not going to do it, then it's like, well, now it's legal. You have to at least say, this actually is bad from time to time.
So having established that,
yes.
Let's talk about something else, which is related but different.
I'm sorry I wasted that opportunity for you to move on a minute ago. Go ahead.
No, it was an important point that you made. But
thank you.
We're going to talk about Pierre Poilievre.
We are going to. Yes, right.
We are.
But that was for the Quebecois, of course. Yes.
How Pierre Poilievre lost the plot and Canada federal election 2025.
Yeah.
Okay.
How?
And again, you have to set the background. Pierre Poilievre is a conservative. He's a bulldog, nasty attack style Newt Gingrich kind of politician. So he establishes his personality over some years. He's been in the parliament up there for some years. He's won 3-4 elections in his conservative district, which is changing. The conservative district that he represents, the riding that he represents.
Riding. I like it.
Is getting more professional, more college educated. Right, and that's going to be important. So he runs the Conservative Party in Canada, and people are so unhappy with Justin Trudeau that Pierre Poilievre winds up having a 25-point lead.
Yep.
In the polls.
He did have that. I think.
Then Trudeau resigns.
Adieu.
Trump pushes the idea that he's going to subjugate Canada
Oui.
by imposing tariffs and making them the 51st state. Canadians are outraged, politely, but outraged nonetheless.
They're sorry about it, but they are outraged. Yes.
And Mark Carney, who is an economist and a very
Yes.
measured, smart, clever, but measured fellow, takes over the prime minister, the premiership there.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the one that runs against Polyev, not Justin Trudeau. And
Right.
Polyev, who spent his entire political year saying, vote for me, I'm not Justin Trudeau, which is how he got the 25-point
Yes.
lead,
And he wasn't.
finds his lead, vanishes against this other person who says, our main point is pointing out that Trump's an idiot and we will absolutely not be subjugated by him. Whereas Polyev has wrapped his arms around Trump and being a very Trumpy fellow with a Trumpy style, cannot adjust to the fact that things have changed. And he winds up losing
Trump.
the election by a couple of points. So that's like a 26, 27-point turnaround.
That's a lot.
And that's how Pierre Polyev lost the plot and Canada federal election. He simply couldn't
Boy, did he
change.
lose a lot.
Now, as it turns out, in his individual riding, a Toronto suburb, which is very conservative, he loses.
He loses.
He loses his own seat in Carleton to Liberal candidate Bruce Vanjoy.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
He's lost his riding, which doesn't make a lot of sense to Americans, but he lost his
election. A few months
election.
back, Canadian pollsters and political experts were unanimous in their backing of the Conservatives coming back to power after being the second best since 2015. The losses in the 2019 and 2021 elections were seen as a thing of the past. The stage was set for the Conservatives under the young Polyev to take charge of Canada. He can't even hold on to his own riding. He can't even hold on to his own seat.
No. It's gone.
The Liberals are almost written
Hallelujah.
off. And then this happens. And it's pretty clear that the main reason it happened was a combination of Trudeau stepping down and Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from the Toronto Star. Mark Carney wins an election that was more about Donald Trump than Pierre Polyev.
Okay, yes, agreed.
Donald Trump went on social media on Canada's election day to endorse himself as the best leader for this country. Canadians politely disagreed, handing victory to Mark Carney and the Liberals, a vote for stability. Amid the chaos, Trump keeps wanting to recon Canada. Perhaps Trump will want to let that sink in. Canadians don't want to be the 51st state. And when they want to be led by a governor, they mean a former bank governor.
Oh, okay. Sure, why not?
It wasn't easy, and it wasn't the romp to a majority the Liberals had been led to expect as the early results poured in. Actually, the Conservatives did well in the early results, but as the later results came in, Liberals did better and better and better. The count still isn't finished.
What?
And because it's coalition government style like Europe, it's likely that the Liberals will lead in a minority coalition as opposed to a majority. They're about 2 or 3 seats away from having a flat-out majority.
That's not very many, but yeah, they'll need some help.
So they still might pull it out, but unlikely. Still, for all the stability this result presents to Trump and the rest of the world, the election also ushers in a wave of change to politics, especially among conservatives. After 2 years of assuming that Pierre Polyev would easily become the next prime minister, conservatives are relegated once again to opposition status, where Canadians may have decided that they belong.
Okay.
Certainly, it can now be said that Polyev spent too much time telling voters he was the anti-liberal, not the prime minister in waiting.
You have
Too
to say what
Trumpy,
you're for.
Polyev was called.
Yeah.
By
a
top advisor to Premier of Ottawa, Doug Ford, who was a conservative.
Yeah.
They hate each other.
The Fords.
Yeah.
The crazy Fords.
Yeah. They get along as well as Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio do. Clearly, some key voters across this country, especially in Ontario, agreed with that, no matter whether Polyev sticks around or not. Because remember, he lost his seat, but still does not want to resign as leader of the Conservative Party. That's a tough sell.
Yeah. I mean, does it work? Can you do it?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I'll ask the Canadians, I guess. You say but I can't imagine. Is this like one of those situations where, well, the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be a member, the leader of the Conservative Party doesn't have to be seated anywhere? I mean, I guess they can choose anyone they want.
So
But why?
all of the parties did less well than they thought. Conservatives thought they were going to win. They didn't.
Yeah.
Liberals thought they were going to win bigger because the initial poll suggested that. They didn't. Bloc Québécois didn't do as well as they should have. Greens only won one seat. So this article goes on to say all this humbling stands again in sharp contrast to Trump, who doesn't appear to have any acquaintance with the concept of humility. Thanks to the president and his tariff and annexation threats, Canada's going through a period of immense national pride. That's why people say elbows up, like in hockey. But this was an election
what does that mean?
that kept, well, it means that if you're going to check somebody, you put your elbows up, so maybe you'll hit them in the face.
Oh, okay. All right.
But this was an election that kept the country's politics in a non-boastful contest for the moderate middle. It was more than 20 years ago when liberals were able to pull off a fourth consecutive term. That was 2004. Paul Martin was the follow-up to 3 wins by Jean Chrétien. And like Martin, Carney is likely to face a parliament that's as fractious and difficult to manage as the last one was. But Trump is obviously the largest and most immediate challenge. It's just amazing that Trump gets credit for this victory. It's just that it's the victory of the opposition.
I see. So where does the extra voting seats come from for the Liberal Party then? And is NDP, is that where they would look to put their...
Yeah, they took it from NDP and Greens. They took it from the more leftist NDP, and they took it from the Greens. So the Conservatives maybe gained a seat or two compared to where they were last time, but not nearly enough to come close to governing. And the Liberals picked up even more seats, and they took them away from these other parties. Bloc Québécois, I think, lost seats.
But yeah, if they need an extra 3 or 4 votes to establish a majority,
so he'll be the premier. He'll be the prime minister.
Okay. Yes.
But it may be with a coalition government, which may or may not mean anything.
Right.
It won't be with the Conservatives, so it's not going to be a stoplight coalition like in Germany.
Yeah.
So it's a clear loss for the Conservatives and a clear loss for Trump.
Okay.
I tell you.
Good. I am pleased with that, and you know what? I liked it so much. You should come back tomorrow and tell me more. What do you say? Okay.
I'll tell you more, but different.
Okay, that's good too. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So much to cover. By the way, another of the clips circulating from the Terry Moran interview with Trump includes, as I mentioned, I think we now have audio for it. Can I? No. Is it worth playing? I don't know. But the exchange is about tourism. And again, another just sort of flat out assertion from Trump that things that are real and actually happening are not real, and that the reality is the opposite, because it would be the opposite that helps Trump. This is, I guess, about 40 seconds of similar exchange here, but I think they're talking about tourism here.
And Canadians, many of them, are really angry, furious about your talk about we're going to take over, Canada's going to become the 51st state. And it kind of is of a piece. A lot of travel is down into the United States from around the world. It feels like there's been reputational damage.
The country's doing great. Well, prices are down,
not the tourism,
gasoline's down, energy's down, tourism is going to be way up. Wait till you see the numbers. The tourism is way up.
Not now.
Now, Canada, tourism's doing very well. We're doing very well. We're doing very well. Wait till you see the real numbers come out in 6 months from now. Wait till you see the numbers.
But do you think, I'm going to ask you, if I may.
So much going on there and so much wrong. You know, tourism is way up. No, not now. It isn't. No, we are. We're doing very well. We're doing very well. We're doing very well. We'll be doing very well. We'll later go. We're doing very well now, but in 6 months, we're going to be doing even better. Wait till you see the real numbers. So like 10 things going on here. Denialism about what's really happening now. an attempt to conflate it with what he thinks will be happening later, which is just ridiculous because who could tell what direction that's going. And then, of course, the real numbers. Wait till you see what happens when we lie about the numbers and see how many people believe us. And this will be happening across the board with economic numbers. Wait till you see the real numbers. We're going to force people to revise the real numbers. The Department of Commerce, the Treasury, the Labor Department, we're going to insist that they report numbers that reflect better on this administration. And if you don't, you'll be fired, and we'll keep firing everybody who's at your department until we find somebody who's willing to report these fake numbers. And the same thing will be happening, of course, with tourism. But in the meantime, I love that move. We're doing very well. We're doing very well right now. You're wrong. Right now, we're doing great. We'll be doing great. In 6 months, you'll see that we were doing great, and we were doing great now, even when we're not doing great. That I thought was fairly amazing. And I didn't finish the clip, I don't think. There was still another half a minute to the first clip that we were talking about with the knuckles. So like Trump, we'll return to the knuckles just for a minute because he really does, I don't know. I mean, he really puts an exclamation point on the end of the exchange.
This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but they're
photograph.
there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
he's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
All right. We'll take a look.
And now here, I guess even Greg would have to say, now, okay, actually, that's very bad. That Moran, in the end, is so desperate to move on that he said, and I don't know why, because what are you going to learn from a guy like this? Well, I want you to lie to me about Ukraine for a while. Why? Why exactly? But it might be interesting to say, well, let me hear your brain melt about Ukraine for a little while. That would, and you should say that. Well, Mr. President, given that your brain is in a puddle on the floor right now about these knuckles and the tattoos, let's see what your idiot box has to say about Ukraine. Tell me some lies that are upside down and backwards from the facts staring everyone in the face on Ukraine for a few minutes. I guess that would be a good introduction. But, but they're on his knuckles. It says MS-13. All right. I mean, I see that he's doing it exasperatedly and is, I guess rolling his eyes and saying so ironically, but don't say it. Don't say it at all. So there's still more. And of course, I love the part, as I said, about Trump saying, this is why people don't trust the news. I mean, in part, I guess it is a little bit about why people don't trust the news, because they say things like, but sir, Ukraine. And again, I don't know it's tough to be on the spot, and when you're actually recording it and the lights are on, sometimes you lose track of what's been said and what hasn't been said, and you feel hot and flushed and you can't believe what's going on in front of you. But I'm just frustrated by the fact that, and I know, and Greg says it doesn't even matter to say it, but I don't know. I guess I disagree, or I wish that there was such a moment where you could just say, listen, what we're talking past each other here, but let's bring out the picture. You wanted to bring out the picture, we'll bring out the picture, and I'll point to you and I'll say, look, this leaf, that's on his knuckles. This smiley face, on his knuckles. This cross, on his knuckles. I agree with all this stuff. This skull is on his knuckles. I agree. This right here, this M over the leaf, not on his knuckles. And you can see that that's just typeset. In fact, one or two of these things floats like off of his skin. Like, why is this on the chart at all? This M is not here. This S is not here. The 1 is not here. The 3 is not here. This little thing underneath that says, we say this represents an M because this is a marijuana leaf and it begins with the letter M. That little marijuana leaf written down, that's not on his knuckles. This smiley face, the word smiley face, is not on his knuckles. These are what was photoshopped onto this picture of real tattoos on his knuckles. The problem is that there's none of these letters, and you have just sat there and said that the letters were on his knuckles, and they're not. That's the problem. That's the problem. I say it's photoshopped. What I mean is the M and the S and the 1 and the 3 and the words marijuana leaf and smiley face. That's the photoshopping. You say that I'm saying that these tattoos are photoshopped on. I am not saying that. But you're saying this M and this S are really on his skin, and they're not. That's your problem. But you're not supposed to be interviewing him about the knuckles and the tattoos, but why we can never get to the bottom of anything, I'll never know. And then, of course, okay, Ukraine, sir, Ukraine. I don't know. There's still 10 seconds of this left.
MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested. Ukraine.
Coming up.
That's amazing, right? And we'll look at that. Did they look at that? I don't know. Did they return at any point and say, this is what the president was talking about? Other people did on social media. Here's the picture. Here's the picture of Trump holding the picture. So you can see what we're talking about. But if you're going to come back to it, come back to it. If you say you're going to come back to it, you better do it. And I guess at some point Trump did come back to it. And I don't have that clip ready and handy. But I don't know. What can I tell you? It's not I think it's the craziest thing he's ever said in public. I mean, I guess taking over the airports. The Continental Army taking over the airports. Invisible planes. I'm still always still astonished when I'm reminded that he had said that he was asked about transparency on the wall, meaning like who's paying for it and how, and tell us about the studies that say it will or won't work, whatever. Transparency about the issue, and that he took that from a Republican debate, right? That question about it to mean, we're fine because my wall will have transparent parts. We're going to make it so that you can look through the fence, because otherwise, you've misunderstood. Transparency on the wall doesn't mean I want pieces of the wall to be see-through. I don't care. But not only did he think that's what it meant, but then he tries to justify it after the fact, like, what I meant was the reason you do have to be able to see through the wall, because otherwise you could be walking along near the wall. Like, why would you be doing that? Exactly. Walking along near the wall, and then they very frequently throw drugs over the top of the wall and in very heavy parcels, and it could hit you in the head and hurt you. Oh my God. No. What are you talking about? This guy, Kovfefe, is a real word. He said his name was CJ, DJ. I could call him either one, they said. Any number of these things. And I recall that the last time around that there was another such controversy that he just really had no idea what was going on in general. I had compiled, another list of the things, and I think we hit the highlights of it, but there's probably one or two more, probably 10 more floating out there about, that illustrate just how completely out of touch he really is. Anyway, so there's other stories, things we had to get to. Let me click on some of these things and see which ones need attention in what order. I'm going to do the out of order. Follow up. That's what we'll start with. Follow up on the story that I related to you the other day about Clay Jackson, the attorney, the Dallas area attorney. Remember, we learned his story that he was at the gas station, the local gas station, filling up, and the attendant at the gas station asked him, hey, can you talk to these people who are an undocumented migrant family and they're losing their minds? Their dad's been swept up in an ICE raid and they need some help understanding what their rights are and how to proceed from here. You're a lawyer. Would you be willing to talk to them about what they should be doing? And he said, yeah, sure. And then we found out that he was then he was like visited by, what happened exactly? Visited by the police, I guess. What do you do? We heard that you were talking to people about their rights, and this is America, so you can't do that, essentially. What was going on? Well, the update is he's been fired from his job as well, because the company he was working for basically are worried that there will be negative repercussions for them and their business once the vindictive idiot Trump finds out the name of their company. We're going to find out who you are, and we're going to make things difficult for you because a guy exercised his rights in a way that I don't like. So Judd Legum's Popular Information newsletter is the source of the update. Judd writes with Rebecca Crosby. Fortune 500 company abruptly fires lawyer who helped immigrant family. That's the whole headline. On March 4th, Clay Jackson, you know the background, but this will remind you, an attorney in the Dallas area was at a gas station near his home when the attendant asked if he could help a local immigrant family. The family's father, who's undocumented, had been targeted in an ICE raid at the workplace. His wife, also undocumented, but their youngest child is a U.S. citizen. Jackson agreed because he's a decent person. Later that same day, Jackson visited the family in their home. He's not an immigration lawyer, but he advised the parents of their basic rights if they were detained by ICE. He also promised to help the family find an attorney specializing in immigration law to help them pro bono. The entire meeting lasted less than an hour. That's not in fact relevant, but, this helps color the picture there. On March 6th, two plainclothed officers, and we keep having problems with plainclothed officers who, yes, sometimes do, sometimes don't identify themselves. This is an issue everywhere. So two plainclothes officers, maybe, came to Jackson's home and asked if his name was Clay Jackson. It was, so he said yes. Then one of the officers, maybe, said, "We have information that you are obstructing an ongoing immigration investigation." The men asked if they could come inside. Jackson declined. The men refused to tell Jackson their names or provide badge numbers. Jackson shut the door. Are they officers? I don't know. Neither do you. Neither does Judd. Neither does Clay know whether they are or not. All these facts were, of course, first reported by journalist Radley Balco on April 23rd, and we read them to you when he reported them in his newsletter, The Watch. The same day Balco's story was published, Jackson was fired from his job as litigation counsel at Fidelity National Financial. Sell your stock. Get out now. Whatever relationship you may have with Fidelity National Financial. What are they? They're a large insurance company, a member of the Fortune 500, so it's a good chance that someone listening has business with them. May want to rethink that. In 2024, the company brought in more than $13 billion in revenue selling title insurance, life insurance, annuities, and other financial products. Balco, by Jackson's request, did not mention FNF, again, Fidelity National Financial, or the nature of Jackson's legal work in his report. So that's not what they're mad about. In an interview with Popular Information, Jackson shared more details, though, about his termination from FNF, and this is the update. On March 23rd, Jackson told his boss at FNF that he was planning to speak publicly about the incident. He explained that he was scared for his safety and the safety of FNF customers, and he felt an obligation to speak out. Now, exactly what does he mean by "I fear for the safety of FNF customers"? Not sure. That could mean anything. That could mean, well, among our customer base are people who will also likely face deportation threat. That could be it. Or it could mean I'm afraid for FNF customers because eventually it'll come out that I work at FNF and the president will try to punish FNF by either punishing us directly or somehow bringing down punishment upon major clients of FNF in an effort to get at us indirectly. That could also be the issue. I'm not sure. But as he says, he explains he was scared for his safety and possibly the safety of FNF customers, and he felt an obligation to speak out. And again, that too, not clear to me. Obligation to tell the bosses at FNF that trouble could be coming, or he felt an obligation to speak out about the situation with cops maybe visiting his door because he gave legal advice to people and informed them of what their rights were, which is something that, you have those rights, whether the police like it or not, and they're not supposed to be bothering anybody about them, but they were. I'm not sure which part. Anyway, his boss appeared dismissive of Jackson's concerns and refused to agree that all persons, including non-citizens, are entitled to due process under the Constitution. So I guess he's a little Trumpy, the boss is. Nevertheless, Jackson's boss said he would get back to Jackson soon about the matter. Okay. Soon I'll fire you, is what he's basically saying. A week passed. Jackson heard nothing. Jackson followed up with his boss via email, saying he was disappointed about the lack of follow-up. Jackson copied a higher-ranking FNF executive on the email, so now you're in trouble. Jackson received a response from the higher-ranking executive a few days later. The executive suggested that providing assistance to an undocumented immigrant family could constitute professional misconduct and damage the company. How so? No explanation for that. What do you mean? Professional misconduct. How so? A neighbor asks, do I have rights? I'm a lawyer. I've studied this. I said, you do have rights. You need to get an expert in those rights, but you do have rights. You should absolutely seek a lawyer who is skilled in asserting those rights. And if you're worried about paying for it, you can usually find people somewhere in the legal community who practice this kind of law and will help you pro bono. That is to say, for free, for the public good. Pro bono. That's not, not for free isn't what pro bono means, but for you, in effect, it does mean that. And that's all he told him. How is that professional misconduct? It is not. It is just this boss trying to frighten Clay and, into believing that there would be grounds for firing him. But unfortunately, unfortunately for this executive, Clay's an attorney and he knows what's going on here. It's not professional misconduct. You're not a lawyer, so you don't know what legal professional misconduct is. I am a lawyer, and I do know what legal professional misconduct is. And this isn't it, but this is you trying to lay the groundwork for a defense when I sue you for firing me improperly. So, okay, fine. I understand what you're trying to do here. So the higher up executive said, well, this is maybe professional misconduct, but it could damage the company. Could it? Again, indirectly, if you find enough people like in the public and, of course, a vindictive president to say, well, I want to punish FNF now because a guy who works there did a thing that I disagree with, that could damage the company. But it should be illegal to damage the company in that way, and the company should be able to sue and recover for it, but they won't be able to because the guy beating up on them is the president of the United States. So, all right, fine. The executive also said that Jackson's complaints about his boss's, Jackson's boss, the middle guy, lack of understanding, your complaints about the guy not getting back to you, that constitutes your resignation. And no, that's how you'll regard it, but no, I didn't resign. You'll have to fire me. Jackson responded that he was not resigning. The company then fired him a few weeks later. Took him a while. They're dithering. This is your resignation. It isn't. I need to consider this for a few weeks. So they played some golf. They hid from this situation for a while, waited for the cops to maybe arrest Clay, but then they didn't. So they said, all right, we'll fire you. This was, now when was he fired? He was fired. The timing is that he was fired hours after Radley Balco's story was published. So they basically were like, well, we hope this goes away. Oh, no, it isn't. It's in the news again. All right, you're fired. So they offered an explanation for the firing. What was the explanation? Unsatisfactory performance and violations of company policy. The company did not detail what policies Jackson allegedly violated, because he didn't. The policy of doing stuff the way we want it done. It was basically the policy they came up for. And unsatisfactory performance. How so? Also, no information about that. The targeting of Jackson is consistent with a larger effort by the Trump administration to harass and intimidate lawyers who assist undocumented immigrants. In a March 22nd executive order, President Trump accused pro bono immigration lawyers of coaching, quote, clients to conceal their past or lie about their circumstances when asserting their asylum claims, all in an attempt to circumvent immigration policies enacted to protect our national security and deceive the immigration authorities and courts into granting them undeserved relief, unquote. Now there I pause just to draw the parallel here, as Greg was reminding you, and as we spoke about yesterday, courts increasingly finding that they don't feel that they can trust government representation in courts. The government's lawyers that show up are not fulfilling their duty of candor to the courts. They are not operating in good faith, and that causes all sorts of existential problems for the legal system. But the parallel here is that the problem the courts are having is that the courts are finding that the DOJ is the one that is availing themselves of magic words and the parsing of language such that they are justifying to themselves, if not to the court, their alleged right, which they don't have, to defy the courts in their rulings, or to say that this ruling doesn't actually apply to us in some way, or that case, which is exactly parallel to this case, the precedent doesn't apply because our name isn't on that. I mean, it really has come down to that, by the way. I keep saying that, and it was a great illustration of it just last night. Did I forward this on? I think so, via Blue Sky. So it might actually be something that I can find relatively quickly. And I guess it came out before the Terry Moran stuff, but we'll see if I can find it. But at some point in one of the cases pending before the courts, the DOJ's position was that the plaintiffs had named certain government agencies, certain government departments in a lawsuit and seeking to, enjoin them from taking one step or another. And I can't remember whether it was about firings. I think it was about dodgy firings versus about immigration. But that the government, essentially the government attorney's position here was, well, this only names the Department of, I don't know which ones they were, but by way of example, the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that only means that those two departments should be, if anybody at all, should be barred from firing personnel in this way. And the rest of the government doesn't have to be bound by this decision. So the plaintiffs apparently made a motion to amend their complaint and then handed the same complaint back in with, instead of, Organization X versus U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Department of Housing and Urban Development, they literally named every department and every independent agency, every arm of the government which could possibly engage in similar activity. And now the front page, the title of the case is like 40 pages long because it lists every government entity, because that's the kind of pedantic idiocy that government lawyers are now involving themselves in. I'll have to see if I can't find that tweet for you, or not tweet, but Blue Sky post, and see if I can't find that. But anyway, you can see that this is a government-wide problem with these guys. But this is where were we? The parallel was Trump was saying in his immigration-related executive order that it's the lawyers for the undocumented immigrants who are the ones engaging in the semantic games and teaching people to say magic words so they can somehow avoid responsibility to the courts. Well, every Republican accusation is a confession, and this is no different. So, the executive order, Judd and Rebecca continue here. It was Rebecca, wasn't it? The executive order accuses undocumented immigrants of undermining the integrity of our immigration laws and the legal profession more broadly. Again, huge confession here. The executive order says that the Attorney General should seek sanctions against any lawyer who engages in this behavior. Unless, of course, they're our lawyers. The administration has also detained attorneys at the U.S.-Mexico border and sought to search their cell phones. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, has repeatedly called for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to be criminally prosecuted for informing immigrants about their legal rights. And we were all astonished when he said something that stupid, and then I guess we got worried when we found out, okay, well, they're not doing it to AOC because that would be maybe too high profile, so they're doing it to Clay Jackson and the likes of Clay Jackson instead. Bill Foley, little background on who are the FNF folks. Bill Foley, the billionaire founder and chairman of FNF, in case you were wondering, is a major Republican donor and Trump supporter. That should come as no surprise. Foley has supported each of Trump's presidential runs, donating $500,000 to Trump's umbrella campaign organization in 2020. He lost that election, by the way. Notably, Foley publicly broke with Trump following Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, though, calling him a narcissistic egomaniac. But of course, he's back now, so yeah, he's sucking his toes again, I guess. Foley supported Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the 2024 primary, but after Trump won the nomination, Foley donated another $500,000 to Trump's 2024 campaign. He just can't stop licking that guy's feet, I guess. And there's more about it after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So as I mentioned, there was a little bit more, and only a tiny bit more. I regret that I couldn't fit it all into the other segment, but just so you know who's behind all this, it was, again, Bill Foley is the name of the billionaire founder and chairman of FNF, a major Republican donor. He said he broke with Trump after Trump tried to overthrow the government in 2021, calling him a narcissistic egomaniac. But then after his attempt to support another narcissistic egomaniac, Ron DeSantis, in the 2024 Republican primaries petered out, Foley said, well, I might as well keep licking the feet and sucking the toes of Donald Trump, the narcissistic egomaniac, and gave him another $500,000 in the effort to do so. Foley is, if you're looking for a way to, I don't know, exact some economic revenge, and you're not a customer of FNF, then you might be able to exert that pressure through his ownership of the NHL's Las Vegas Golden Knights franchise. If you're a Las Vegas hockey fan, and I mean, I really never believed that was ever going to work out, but I guess it has, and there must be, therefore, a fan base of some number there. But maybe you want to quit the Las Vegas Golden Knights now and find a different hockey team to support. He has, of course, donated millions more to the Republican Party and other Republican candidates. Was Jackson's termination an effort by FNF to avoid an ideological conflict with the Trump administration? Yes, of course. FNF, though, did not respond to a request for comment. That is the end of the piece that Judd and, yes, Rebecca put together for popular information. Just an update on what's going on with Clay Jackson, and a reminder that Bill Foley is a jackass that you should avoid like the plague as well. to the extent practicable. I mentioned along the way that there was that one case with the now 40 pages of defendants being added to the style of the case. I did find that post. It was Roger Parloff who posted it. Who's Roger? Senior editor at Lawfare. We've definitely gone there for a number of stories and probably read Roger in the past. Somebody else was commenting on it, I think, is the way it finally made it into my timeline. And the comment was that this sort of stuff is usually looked upon as a time-wasting, annoying, pedantic prank, and normally will sour the court on the jackass who does it. But in this case, it's likely to sour the court on the government for making it necessary to do. It wasn't even necessary to do, but essentially daring this to happen and then actually seeing it happen. And the courts will probably know exactly who to blame in all this. By the way, what case is it? It is in the case over the law firm executive order cases, in which, the executive orders where Trump said, we're going to punish the lawyers who work on this stuff. So, we were on the right track. Roger posts, in the law firm executive order cases, DOJ takes the position that an injunction barring implementation of the punishment of law firms, etc., will only be enforceable against the government agencies named in the complaint. So this is the Perkins-Coie case. Perkins-Coie just amended its complaint to name all relevant federal agencies. The case caption, the title, is now 40 pages long. And there's some screenshots of the pages, all of which are, I guess, now too small to actually read, even when you enlarge them all the way. But really amazing. And so, now they have to serve notice to all of these agencies, 40 pages of them, but good. And will they all have to respond individually? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for them to do. And the government will say, ordinarily, the government says, in order to avoid the expense of having 40 pages worth of agencies, so that must be like 400 and something agencies, 800 maybe, agencies, each individually represented by a government lawyer sitting here. The whole courtroom is full of just defense lawyers. There's no audience, there's no gallery, and they can't all fit in here either. In order to avoid a situation like that, normally the Department of Justice will say, look, we understand that this is law that will be applicable to all similarly situated government agencies. We don't need to litigate this with respect to the Department of the Interior if we've already litigated it with respect to the Department of Health and Human Services. We understand it will be applied across the board because that's the value of precedent in the common law. That's the way things work. If I am held to account for denying someone's civil rights and I work for this department, it is well understood that if I deny someone's civil rights from within a different federal government department, I will likewise be in trouble. Basically, we're supposed to understand that as adults, and it's only now that the DOJ is saying, nuh-uh, you didn't say. All right, fine, then we will say. So I don't know. I thought that was an interesting development all by itself. All right, let's see what else is in. We got to go back to Pocket and remind ourselves of the other crazy things that need to be outlined. Oh, Greg mentioned at some point tariffs and Amazon, just to update you on what was going on there. I think, did we say it yesterday? I think maybe we did, but I grabbed some proof to establish that I didn't just make that up entirely. But at airtime yesterday morning at the beginning of the show, Amazon had said, we are going to tell our consumers, our customers, what accounts for these enormous spikes in prices. I presume things being imported from China in particular, having the 145% tariff slapped on top of it. Other countries, of course, will see the prices go up as well. But they basically said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell you what the price is, and then we'll tell you, remember, the shipping is free. So what else is there? How come the thing you're ordering from our company that costs $100 now is charging you $245. And the answer is the tariffs. And we're going to call that out in a line, item for you to see. Trump found out, got wind of it, I guess during the show, I don't know, and said, oh, yeah, well, I don't like that very much. It's very unfair. And then, sure enough, Trump said, Amazon said, forget about it. I guess we won't be doing it. All right. So, that's neat. Actually, I had put aside the original post of someone saying, hey, Amazon is going to do this. And now the post I find is deleted because the policy has been deleted. It was an interesting development, to say the least. Okay, let's hit upon a few other things that have been waiting for attention here. Why don't we go over to the New York Times? Stay current. The New York Times now finally they've hinted at it before. We know the story. We know the background story. It is Donald Trump's crypto investments and crypto firm, starting his own coin, et cetera, and several of them being essentially the biggest and most brazen act of presidential corruption in the history of the country and in perhaps the history of many countries. And getting attention front and center in the New York Times, and that's good. But, what can I tell you? We know the story already. Secret deals, foreign investments, presidential policy changes, the rise of Trump's crypto firm. Yes, hello. World Liberty Financial has eviscerated the boundary between private enterprise and government policy in ways without precedent in modern history. Let's hear a little bit about it from Eric Lipton, David Yaffe Belani, and Ben Protes of the New York Times. Like I said, we know the background story, but this gives us some detail and some people's names who we can specifically be mad about. Thank you. The pitch for this whole damn thing, whatever it may be, from Z Money, like an online name, Z Money, arrived on the encrypted messaging app Signal just days before Donald J. Trump's presidential inauguration. Z Money, as dumb as it sounds, was Zachary Folkman, an entrepreneur. I would enclose that in scare quotes. An entrepreneur who once ran a company called, are you ready for how serious a guy this is? He's and by the way, the big letdown here is he now works for World Liberty Financial, the Trump crypto company. And so, supposedly a serious player in the world. His previous company was called Date Hotter Girls. Yeah. But then again, on the other hand, honestly, that's the previous name of Facebook, basically, right? Oh, no, it's called Meta now. I know. But before that, it was called Facebook. And before that, before it was the world-changing social media platform connecting people so that they can share pictures of their grandchildren, it was originally an app to allow the members of the Harvard community to look at and rate girls, and I guess everybody else, on the basis of hotness. And you should probably not lose sight of that when you're trying to understand the place of Meta/Facebook in the wider world today. Anyway, so Z Money, cool guy, money. Zachary Folkman, previously in charge of Date Hotter Girls, and now representing World Liberty Financial, the cryptocurrency firm that Mr. Trump, and his sons had recently unveiled, i.e., like hours before he was inaugurated as president. Mr. Folkman was writing to a crypto startup in the Cayman Islands offering a, quote, partnership in which the firms would buy each other's digital coins, a deal that would bolster the startup's public profile. Like already kind of shaky in terms of the, integrity involved. Well, you buy 10 of my coins and I'll buy 10 of your coins, and then it'll look like we're selling coins. Okay. But there's an extra catch, the New York Times found. For the privilege of associating with the Trumps, the startup would have to make, in effect, a secret multi-million-dollar payment to World Liberty. So it's not, I'll buy 10 of your coins, you buy 10 of my coins. It's, I'll buy 10 of your coins, you buy 10 of my coins, and you pay me $1 million in secret, and I just get to keep that money, all for the privilege of working with us because we are, after all, affiliated with the President of the United States. You see? Everything we do gets lots of exposure and credibility, Mr. Folkman wrote, asserting that other business partners had committed between $10 million and $30 million to World Liberty. The Cayman startup rejected the offer, as did several other firms that received a similar pitch from World Liberty, executives said. They considered the deal unethical, believe it or not, concluding that World Liberty was essentially selling an endorsement and hiding the arrangement from the public. This is remarkable integrity from crypto people. World Liberty's executives, who have maintained that they did nothing improper, were undeterred. They successfully pitched similar deals to other firms while also marketing their coin to buyers around the world, reaping more than $550 million in sales, with a large cut earmarked for the president's family. Yes, that's the problem here. Mr. Trump's return to the White House has opened lucrative new pathways for him to cash in on his power, whether through his social media company or new overseas real estate deals. But none of the Trump family's other business endeavors pose conflicts of interest that compare to those that have emerged since the birth of World Liberty. The firm, largely owned by a Trump family corporate entity, has erased centuries-old presidential norms, eviscerating the boundary between private enterprise and government policy in a manner without precedent in modern American history, or any American history, really. Mr. Trump is now not only a major crypto dealer, he's also the industry's top policy maker. And I wonder if policy might be made or remade to his advantage. You think? So far in his second term, Mr. Trump has leveraged his presidential powers in ways that have benefited the industry and in some cases his own company, even though he had spent years deriding crypto as a haven for drug dealers and scammers. And it is, of course, still a haven for drug dealers and scammers. It's just that now he's figured out a way to get drug dealers and scammers to give him money. So I like that. He has filled his administration with sympathizers to the crypto cause, including by appointing a former advisor to industry players as chairman of the SEC. In addition, the Justice Department recently disbanded a crypto crimes task force, continuing a broader unwinding of Biden-era scrutiny of the industry. A Times examination of World Liberty's rapid ascent from fledgling startup to international force, maybe, and Mr. Trump's conversion from crypto skeptic to industry cheerleader highlights the range of conflicts of interest trailing the company. Let's read a few of those, please, as bullet points. World Liberty has directly benefited from Mr. Trump's official actions, such as his announcement of a federal crypto stockpile that's never existed before and never really needed to. A federal crypto stockpile that would include a digital currency that the firm has invested in. The president's announcement caused a temporary jump in the value of World Liberty's holdings. World Liberty has sold its cryptocurrency to investors abroad, including in Israel and Hong Kong, according to interviews and data obtained by the Times, establishing a new avenue for foreign businesses to try to curry favor with Trump. Several investors in World Liberty's coin-managed firms that the federal government accused of wrongdoing. They include an executive whose fraud case was suspended after he invested millions of dollars in World Liberty. Isn't that interesting? Other investors and business partners, some of whom haven't been publicly identified before, are looking to expand in ways that will require the Trump administration's approval. Just like CBS, Paramount, Viacom, whatever, this merger deal needs Trump's approval. World Liberty proposed swapping cryptocurrencies with at least 5 startups and often used the Trump name to solicit steep payments as part of the deals. Even in an industry with a disreputable history, the deals raised alarm among veteran executives. It's a black spot on our industry, said Andre Cronje, I'm guessing Cronje, Cronje, a founder of Sonic Labs, a crypto firm that turned down World Liberty's pitch. Anyone who accepted would, quote, obviously think that they're going to make money because it's the officially endorsed Trump project, unquote. A spokesman for World Liberty, David Waxman, Wachsman, disputed, not me, it's David Waxman, disputed that any of the company's deals constituted a one-sided payment for services rendered, whatever that might mean. But he acknowledged that the company has engaged in mutual investment deals. and that its deal-making had resulted in thoughtful strategic exchanges between parties who stand to benefit mutually. Mr. Waxman also said it would be false, absurd, and dangerous to suggest that investments or partnerships with World Liberty Financial were conducted as some sort of political quid pro quo. Never has an investor or partner requested any political favoritism, he said, nor would we ever entertain such a possibility. At least if you do entertain such a possibility, don't write it down and put it in our files. Hand it over to the White House where they can hide it. Still, the company's deal-making benefits the president's family. A Trump business entity owns 60% of World Liberty, according to the company's website, and is entitled to 75% of certain revenue from coin sales, which could be converted into cash, i.e. real money, not this fake crap that we have. But how do you like that? How much do you own? 60%. So how much of the profits do you get? 60%? Nope, 75%. What? Why? We're corrupt. Anyway, it's one of the more successful things we've ever done, Eric Trump, the president's son who runs the family business, said in an interview this month at the Trump Doral golf course in Florida, which was funded by Russians, as he famously blabbed out loud earlier in his career. It is probably, I'm sure it's very successful. I own 60%, but I get 75% of the profits. He and his older brother, Donald Trump Jr., are actively involved in World Liberty, though they rely on 3 partners to oversee the daily operations. I don't want to work. I just want the money. Is that cool? Yes. 2 of them, Mr. Folkman and Chase Harrow, like hero, but with an extra R, that's amazing. What a name. Have a mixed track record in crypto. The other is Zach Witkoff, Z-Money, remember him? The son of Mr. Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. Oh, did I get that wrong? Up at the top, I got to look at that. That is Z-Money, isn't it? Oh, no, that was Zachary Folkman. Sorry. The other Zachary, the 2 Zachs. If there's 2 Zachs in your startup company, well, I guess that probably happens all the time these days, but I'd say you need to hire older. Anyway, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East who spends all his time in Moscow for some reason, agreeing to everything that Vladimir Putin asks for, his son also in on the action. In recent days, Zach Witkoff, Mr. Folkman, Z-Money, and Mr. Harrow were in Pakistan, meeting with the country's Prime Minister, Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, and other top government officials. Why? To discuss World Liberty. Why? I don't know. The trip, complete with limousines, a dance performance, and police escorts, seamlessly blended the president's business interests, the American president's, with the trappings of a state visit. Maybe it was the president of Pakistan's interest that we're talking about here. Mr. Waxman said no U.S. government officials were involved in the meetings, just the children of 2 different government officials. President Trump has noted the conflict of interest laws do not apply to him and that he has broad immunity for official actions he takes as president, even though this would ordinarily not come anywhere near that definition, but something. In a statement, a spokeswoman for President Trump noted his assets are in a trust managed by his children, and that as a result, there are no conflicts of interest. The trust still benefits President Trump directly, it notes parenthetically. World Liberty's supporters are unbothered by questions about conflicts. Trump wants to make a lot of money in crypto. Konstantin Kuznetsov, a Russian citizen living in Miami, whose Gibraltar-based firm bought $1 million worth of World Liberty's coins, said in an interview, "We can join in this wave." What does he care, right? By the way, a Russian citizen living in Miami. Does he live in Miami proper, or does he live in Sunny Isles Estates, where there's the 7 Trump towers all in one place? Anyway. Moving on to the next section here. We'll read one more section before we give up. Chief crypto advocate, that's Trump. As a businessman who made his name in the tactile world of real estate, Donald Trump never aspired to build a digital coin empire. Indeed, at the end of his first term, Mr. Trump turned to social media to express disdain for cryptocurrencies because he didn't own any yet. They, quote, are not money, he warned. Their, quote, value is highly volatile and based on thin air, which is, of course, how the value of his real estate empire was created too. But anyway, at least there were buildings involved. They had to be worth something. By last year, his views had begun to shift. You could rip people off. Oh, well, then I like it. His older sons had become enthusiastic crypto proponents after the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol effectively exiled the family business from the mainstream financial system. We built and sold and held real estate forever, and for a long period of time I had access to everyone in the world, Donald Trump Jr. explained in a live video appearance at a crypto conference in Washington last month. All of a sudden that became really difficult because insurrectionism. And I sort of realized very quickly just how much discrimination there is in the ordinary financial markets. We hate people who are going to overthrow the system that enables us to become extraordinarily rich. That was bad. The change of heart also coincided with an influx of millions of dollars in campaign contributions from the crypto industry into the Trump re-election effort. Under the Biden administration, the industry had faced nearly 100 enforcement actions by the SEC, and crypto executives wanted a leader to champion their interests in Washington, i.e. to make their problems go away. During the his campaign stumps, Mr. Trump's qualms about crypto appeared to vanish. At a Bitcoin conference in July, he vowed to turn the United States into the crypto capital of the planet. By the way, just to establish a little background coincidence/connection, the previous claimant to be building the world crypto capital of the planet was Nayib Bukele, president of El Salvador, who tried briefly was successful in making cryptocurrency or Bitcoin a legal tender in El Salvador. They tried to host a crypto summit of some kind, which, if you've got enough money to say I'm going to fly a private jet to El Salvador and bring my own private security force so I can feel safe, you'll attend a cryptocurrency forum of some kind. So a bunch of billionaires went there, and I think they once rigged up a soda machine to sell sodas if you clicked the right button on your smartphone and allegedly paid for it in Bitcoin or something like that. That was the upshot of this fantastic endeavor. So they were probably never in a position down in El Salvador to become the crypto capital of the planet. But the United States could make that happen, or collapse the world economy along the way. I'm not certain that both can't happen. Anyway, just wanted to make that connection in the background. Oh, by the way, I guess since we're exiting for the day, and I have to exit this story as well, one of the things that I realized after spending the day making the connection back to Stephen Biskupich, the Minnesota area, was it Minnesota or no, Milwaukee area U.S. attorney who we were trying to remember how he got famous, and that led us to the original George W. Bush administration U.S. attorneys, stories, etc. I should point out somewhere along the line we mentioned that there was, an investigation launched in the mid-2000s, early 2000s by Democrats in Congress into this weird situation. And how did Stephen Biskupich, what did he do to survive being listed on the purge list there? And then the connection to the Don Siegelman case, et cetera, and just generally speaking, how the W administration had attempted a little less crudely to do what the Donald Trump administration is attempting to do to the DOJ now. And I mentioned, that there was that connection, that Biskupich had been on the list. There was another thing about it, that one of the issues that he had taken up, which I guess was maybe meant to show to the W administration that he was enough of a loyalist to be taken off the list, and that therefore raised questions in Congress, and they were asking, is that the case? Did you take this case in order to get back in the good graces of the W administration and basically fake up your case as they asked you to do so that they would think you were loyal enough? There were two cases that the investigators, the Democratic investigators in the Congress wrote about. One was the Don Siegelman case. Did this get trumped up as a loyalty test for local U.S. attorneys? And also, as it turns out, the case that Stephen Biskupich took up, the Georgia Thompson prosecution. And here, I'm going to jump into Wikipedia for the last minute before we have to hand things over to Justice Putnam. In January of 2006, under Biskupich's direction, Georgia Thompson, a Wisconsin state procurement supervisor, was prosecuted for corruption charges related to a state travel contract. She was convicted and sentenced to 18 months. This conviction was thrown out by an appellate court panel in Chicago after 20 minutes of oral argument. Just want to give you more background on that. In an April 20th, 2007 article, TPM Muckraker reporter Paul Keel noted the Federal Appeals Court released its written opinion on the case, and it wasn't any more sparing than the verbal remarks, e.g. that the evidence was beyond thin, of the judges. When they made the ruling, the prosecution was based on a reading of the law by which simple violations of administrative rules by bureaucrats would become crimes. The judges wrote, and by that interpretation, it is a federal crime for any official in the state or local government to take account of political considerations of any kind, I guess, when deciding how to spend public money. A preposterous idea, they wrote, and indeed I would have to agree. Keel noted in the House Judiciary Committee had invited Biskupich to tell his story to Congress. Gregory Stanford of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel framed the concerns about the unknowns surrounding this case and the importance for all citizens in this way, relating it to the relationship to the dismissal of U.S. attorneys. This was the section we read about yesterday, but there you have it. I just wanted to point that out. When Tammy Baldwin and others called for an investigation into this controversy, they named two cases as standing out as extraordinarily weird and deserving of further investigation. The case against Don Siegelman and this case against Georgia Thompson. And guess what? We spent all that time on the Don Siegelman case. We thought it was an offshoot from the Biskupich investigation we were conducting, reading the Wikipedia page, But as it turns out, a stronger connection existed in the background anyway, and similarly, stronger connections exist in the background of the crypto stuff and the apparent willingness of the Trump administration to store people in the El Salvadoran gulag created by one of their partners in the endeavor to make crypto somehow respectable and a world currency, and or abscond with all the profits while they were presidents of their respective countries. What do you know? I can't believe two people were involved in this same scheme.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, so that was a lot to throw at you in the last 10 minutes of the show, but to straighten things out and give you a sense of a real theme, Justice Putnam takes up the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next right here on Netroots Radio. Top story, victim of Trump's irresponsible anti-immigrant crusade include American citizens born in this country to natural-born American citizen parents. It's happening. Stay tuned.